Welcome to Equal Entertainment. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist. We begin in New York, where our sister brand Out Magazine is celebrating its newest cover launch with the one and only Billy Porter.
You know, for some of y'all young people in the building, it's just been a party.
It was a night to remember. Partygoers gathered in style at New York City's Somewhere Nowhere nightclub in Manhattan's Chelsea neighborhood to celebrate the Billy Porter cover release and his new single, Baby Was a Dancer. There was even a DJ set from ballroom legend Kevin Aviance. Emmy, Grammy, and Tony winner Porter joined in on the festivities and spoke to our very own Sonia Baghdadi about using music as personal expression, being a vessel of visibility for the LGBTQ+ community, and more.
I mean, you're making your return to music with a new album now 26 years after your debut album. Yes. And this is really such an expression, a personal expression for you. So what has it been like making that return?
Well, it's redemptive. It's redemption. Yeah. You know, my first R&B album came out on A&M Records in 1997. The business was very homophobic, and it didn't work out so well for me because I really wasn't interested in not being my full self. And so now all these years later, I get to come back on my own terms. And it takes my breath away. You know, it's magical. I'm so grateful that I've lived long enough to see the day where my queerness, which I was told would be my liability by allies and haters alike, and it was my liability for decades, and now my queerness is my superpower. And the world needs to see what that looks like. Our kids need to see what that looks like and what that feels like. Our government officials need to understand that the change has already happened. The world only spins forward, and we're not going anywhere. So, you know, my art is a revolutionary act. You know, it's my calling, it's my purpose, it's my ministry. And the music, the singing, is the original gift. You know, that's what God gave me. I started singing at 5 in church. You know, so to be able to come back to it like this, it's powerful and magnificent.
You can visit out.com for more content from the cover party, along with the full profile on Billy Porter. We'll have more from the party and Sonia's interview with the star coming up. Switching over to streaming, there's a new series on Prime Video that I'm very excited about. Imagine if all teenage girls had a mysterious gift. That premise is coming in the Prime Video series The Power. It has an all-star cast, including Toni Collette, John Leguizamo, Heather Agyepong, and Toheeb Jimoh. I spoke to them about the series and how it ties in with today's climate with bodily autonomy, LGBTQ+ rights, and more. Congratulations on The Power. It's such a great watch. And I want to begin with you, John, and ask a little bit about your character who, has this incredibly abiding, loving relationship with his wife, Margot, as we start out. And the dynamics begin to shift. And I mean, he's a great ally and a feminist, but the dynamics begin to shift anyway when the power kind of takes over the narrative. And would you talk a little bit about that shift and those dynamics with him and Margot?
Yeah, Toni and I play a married couple in The Power, and Toni is the mayor of Seattle. She's a powerhouse. She's a mom. She's an ally to women in Seattle, and at the same time, you know, I'm her stay-at-home husband, her Mr. Mom.
Entirely. You have
Not
a
entirely.
thriving career.
Yeah, but you're
Equal partnership. It feels
equal
like,
partnership,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I do take the backseat to your career, which is great because it's a role reversal, and I'm
Yeah.
the one that feels like, ask me about my day,
Mhm.
you know, take interest in me, you know, pay attention to me. So it's nice. I love that role reversal because, you know, it's about time, you know, and this was a show that was written by women, produced by women, directed by women. All the women were leads, and it was the most nurturing, collaborative set I've ever been a part of.
That's amazing to hear. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then Toni, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, because it's such a big part of Margot's mission. And also, I mean, at this time, especially here in the United States, would you talk about Margot and her relationship to really fighting for bodily autonomy and how that plays out in this series?
Yeah, look, there's so much in this series that's frighteningly in alignment with what's going on in reality, right?
Mhm.
I mean, this is what I love about Margot. Yes, she is she's a mom, and she has to help her own daughter in a very kind of domestic, loving, personal way, but she actually is in a position where she's able to help women and girls everywhere. And change is inevitable, but change is uncomfortable. And when this new sense of evolution starts to come around, a lot of the guys in power want to squash it. And she realizes she's the person who has to step up and speak the truth and support those who are being affected. What I love about the show is that the electricity, the actual power that is conducted through these girls' bodies is a metaphor for the inherent power that we all actually possess as humans, right? But historically, boys were encouraged to get in contact with that and develop it. And I'm so happy that it's changed and is changing, but it really needs to change further. I mean, there are so many. I just can't believe I read the other day that in South Carolina, they want to bring in the death penalty for women who have abortions. It's just an insane time. And it's really an honor to work on a show that actually speaks to things that are this important and that are just so relevant at the moment.
Yeah, you can explore it in a fiction narrative, you know,
There's an objectivity and
yes.
It's one, you know, like one step removed.
In storytelling that lets us look at ourselves in a way that's a little safer and possibly allows for the changing of minds and the opening of hearts. Because it is a tough time. I mean, you know, the banning of drag shows, the attack on LGBTQ plus, the attack on Latin and Black people's histories in schools. It's a really strange time, but you can see it in the power where the teenage girls get the power, and then they start rounding them up and they start putting plastic gloves on them, and so you can see it.
People are afraid of what they don't
Yes,
understand.
yes.
First, congratulations on The Power. It's such a hit as a novel, and I think people are going to eat up the series. So congratulations. And then I wanted to begin by asking you, Heather, your character's in this interesting situation, being friends with Tunde, and then what comes after that. But she was really the one who found this, and then Tunde kind of took her power to some degree and ran with it. And I wonder, would you talk about that aspect of the storyline?
Yeah, I remember speaking to the writers about this idea of like when women say an idea and a man just says the exact same thing in a different way and everybody loves it. And it felt a really relatable thing that particular women have. So I really related to this idea of a story being taken. But I think the complexity comes with she loves this guy too. He's her best friend, right? And how kind of that complication happens a lot with like love and in relationships, of that kind of give and take, push and pull. But what happens later in the show is that she finds her own story and her own voice. So that's the power which generates her own journey outside of Tunde's, which feels really independent and important and strong. So I'm glad to have depicted that.
Yeah, she gets her power back. I love
Absolutely does. Yeah.
And then Tunde is the only sort of central male character whose story we follow. He's the lead. We get John Leguizamo's character, but he's in with Toni Collette's character. So I wonder, would you talk about Tunde's journey as someone who began this way, kind of unwittingly taking his friend's story and then becoming an ally and a real, advocate for women at a time when they need it?
I think the important thing about it is, like it's not one thing, it's a mess. Like he's a young man trying to figure out his place in the world, trying to figure out how to use his influence and his power and his privilege, and doesn't really understand what to do with it until he gets to a point where he has this influence now and he has this platform. And like his intention, in my opinion anyway, is always to try and use it now. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like he spent the whole of his life leading up to this moment kind of being blissfully unaware of the power that he had that other people around him didn't have, the women around him didn't have. And now because of this thing, like he's forced to really look at it, and he's forced to really decide how he wants to use that power and that platform. And I think it's an awesome journey, and I think it's one that, you know, like I'm on in my personal life. It's one that like all of my male friends are on now, especially at this time where it feels like there's a full-on war on women, and it's like you kind of have to pull up. Like you can't afford to just sit back and you know, like feminism will like deal with feminism, and like men will be over here. It's like everybody kind of has to pull up. Like this is something that's affecting everybody, and I think Tunde realizes that very early on, and then, you know, that sets him on his path. So yeah, it's a really cathartic full circle journey to be on, and it's, you know, a part that young actors don't usually get to play, you know, parts that are this rich and three-dimensional. So yeah, I've been really blessed and yeah, happy to to have the chance to go on this journey with him.
A big thank you to the cast for speaking with me. The Power hits Prime Video on March 31st. We'll have more from the cast and creators of the series coming up. In the meantime, my full interviews with the biggest names in entertainment, including Cate Blanchett and Janelle Monáe, and many more, are available on the Advocate Channel YouTube page. I'm Tracy E. Gilchrist, and that's what's happening in entertainment.